Hopefully. Hi, good afternoon and early evening. This is the Policy Committee. I'd like to call it to order. It is Tuesday, May 16th at 5:30 p.m. in the School Administration Building. And we have Ms. Van Twyver here, we have Mrs. Hohense, we have Mr. Mosier, we have not Mr. Hallowell, we have Mr. Frederickson, and Mr. Kaufman, and Attorney Bolton here this evening. And we do have a quorum. And tonight's agenda consists of 6 items. DKD, cell phone and mobile device, DKD-R, the associated procedure, JLDBA, behavior management and intervention, JKAA, child restraint and seclusion, and the associated procedure, and ECAR, district security procedures, which was left over from the last meeting. So we will start with DKD, cell phone and mobile device policy. And I guess we've had some updates by Mr. Donovan. And this is Mr. Kaufman's suggested proposed new policy. So, we've had some changes to the section on eligibility that's been added. So, school district employees eligible to participate include the superintendent, assistant superintendent, chief operating officer, school principals, assistant school principals, director level unaffiliated employees, plant operations, security officers, IT support, and employees identified by the chief operating officer. And there have been a few other changes here. Did you want to talk to this, Mr. Kaufman?
Thank you. I appreciate the administration filling in the eligibility. I do have one question, and it might have to be done subsequent. I think we should move this forward. But when we speak to director level unaffiliated employees, they are in the process of forming a union. So should the word unaffiliated be stricken?
Yeah. Where are we?
It's about halfway down the list.
Okay.
So just director level employees is what I would.
Yeah. Right, because there still are other unaffiliated, right?
Yes, there will be some remaining.
Yep.
May I-
Any other changes?
Something else,
Yeah.
just to discuss. It was intended, and I think we may want to look at how we entitle this
Mm-hmm.
particular policy. It's intended about reimbursement or, I don't have a good title. And originally from the city, which is the one that I modified, they speak to a mobile device policy. I kept that as the original document just for consistency with what the city had done.
Mm-hmm.
But I would just offer a question to the group. Do we want to include that in here? It's the very title on the page. Do we want to include mobile devices, or are we just speaking about cell phones? Mobile device meaning I would think like an iPad or even a laptop. And we...
You can receive mail, you can communicate with that. I'm not so sure. I had no problem with cell phone and mobile device policy.
Okay.
But what was the one on the city?
This is the title of the city policy,
Oh,
so I
okay.
retained it.
Oh, okay.
But I did want to ask the committee if they wanted to retain that as well, or is that really out of the scope of what the content is? Content doesn't speak to any mobile devices other than a cell phone. Or I should say, it doesn't speak to any devices other than a cell phone. And I guess as a title, maybe it's just so cell phone, almost like a reimbursement policy is really where it is. But if it evolves to where we're giving devices to the employees, then should that be reflected in the title?
Cell phone. There were two there were two options, cell phone and smartphone. And they are both mobile devices, are they not? Or is this a mobile device just considered tablets? I don't know what the definition of a mobile device is. I've wondered about that, but
Again, I did copy what was there. They spoke to specifically a smartphone.
okay.
I think the idea is, as we've been told before, these devices, these were essentially phones. The intent was so employees are reimbursed for their expenses in cases of emergency. In most cases, that's going to be the use of the phone. I think probably some of the administrators, like Dr. Brown and the IT folks and some others, use it much more routinely because somebody's always chasing them down. But I think in general, for the principals and things like that, the discussion point was emergency use. So to that extent, I don't think, we didn't reimburse, we haven't, to the best of my knowledge, reimbursed somebody if an IT person comes here with a laptop, that's school laptops, using school, they wouldn't be involved, but to get them here, it would be a telephone.
Okay. How about cell phone, and just cell phone device policy? I think
Okay.
it shouldn't say reimbursement because it covers more than just reimbursement. All right?
Yep.
That would be my suggestion, but we'll think about it too.
Sure, and I did want to put it out there for discussion, because
Yeah.
I think we should be clear.
Well, I haven't heard anybody else speak up yet,
It's
so-
fine.
It's fine? Okay. Anything more change to the eligibility section there? If not, I have a change on the next one. The title, option one, I
Mhm.
think it should be employee-provided device policy. Because with, the second thing is the
Okay.
district-provided device policy,
Mhm.
just to keep it in. And then there's got to be a change to the second paragraph in there. January 1, 2017 has gone past.
Oh, yeah,
When do we want to state there?
September 1st.
September 1st? Well,
Hopefully we have it approved by then.
yeah, well, that's the next thing, 2017. I have a real problem with the last line on there, recipients of the allowance shall understand that.
Okay.
And that's where I think we're going to have a lot of discussion.
Okay.
And they waive their right to privacy. They should comply with any reasonable request for billing records
Red,
and usage
the bottom of the
information.
first page.
Cannot use the phone for any illegal purpose and are subject to all board policies. And I'm going to let,
I would let Mr.
This-
Bolton's the generator of that text. It may-
okay. And then we will have Mr. Frederickson and then Mr. Kaufman.
I don't think I am the
I recall-
proposer of that. I think it came from the
Our
city's
discussion.
policy,
Oh, well, thank you. I know. I
which
didn't-
was
I shared
generated
it.
before I
Okay.
returned to work for the city. But that's, to my recollection, that's what the city's policy provides.
Is the city's policy?
Is it similar?
No,
Oh,
but I don't think it is. I mean, but you're the lawyer, you can take a look at it.
does it say? Well, in any event, it's policy, and it's for the Board of Education to determine what is an appropriate policy. Someone opts out, they don't have to get the allowance provided.
That didn't come from you, Bill?
I don't think so. I don't remember putting it together.
Well, I hope you do recall we sat and we spoke
Oh, I know
about
we
it.
talked,
Yeah.
but I thought we took that from somewhere else.
Okay.
Because I can remember saying the city has a policy on this, and
Does,
Can I just ask if you look at 2.0 under the city policy?
okay,
Talks about connecting to city resources.
right.
There's no reference to a personal cell phone or anything in there, right?
Well, they talk about
If you look at
being
2.0, it
an
talks about-
allowance.
Yeah, no, I wasn't getting down to the allowance, I was
For the-
talking about the applicity, what it actually applies to, the policy,
Yeah.
the city policy. I mean, I'll be honest with you, the city policy looked pretty good. I didn't have as much of an issue with that.
Okay. Well, I don't, in any
Does it-
event,
does
it's
it
it's up
say-
to the Board of Education to determine what their policy should be with regard to cell phones. If you want the right, it would seem to me appropriate if you were going to pay the entire bill, you would want to see the bill and the full record of the bill. You're going to make a reimbursement of a certain amount, maybe you don't need to see the whole bill. If you're worried that somehow your IT people need to see the phone and see if it's infected and is going to infect the website or the computer system, if it is allowed to connect in and sync up and so forth, then that'd be a reason to have a policy that would allow your IT department to examine the phone and, pass on it. But it's really less is it legal to do it or is it illegal not to do it? That doesn't really enter into it. It's what you think is appropriate and why you think it's appropriate. Now, in the case of a union environment, if there's anything in the union contract, you may either have to get an agreement to change what's in the union contract, or you have to negotiate over the impact that it would have. If you're giving them money that they haven't gotten before, and it's their option to opt in or opt out, I can't imagine that's much of a problem. But essentially, as I say, it's really up to what the board determines is an appropriate policy to have. You're giving something in exchange for something, and on terms that you decide you want to impose.
Well, the city policy does not say they waive their right to privacy. Is that,
I can't find it in these pages, no.
You didn't write that, though?
I don't remember writing it.
I remember you contributing.
Because I'll be
The
honest with you,
information.
we get it on the record that
That
Rick
I wrote
said
it?
that he
No, I
wrote it.
recall that he did say it. There was an email, I think, that went to two of the principals. They talked about it one
I
of the
must have
previous
gotten it
meetings.
from somewhere.
There was
If I
there was an email exchange
We were
with
told
Mr.
that was your
Richard.
language.
I don't know.
Yeah.
If it is, I just copied it from something else.
But is that in fact the case, Mr. Bolton, that if they accept the stipend, that these are legal liabilities that are attached to that money? Because the intent was to inform the staff that if you get this, if you accept this money, this is the legal stuff that's attached to it.
As I say, if you want to impose these requirements, it's lawful for you to do so. If you don't want to, the law doesn't require that you do so.
But that's a notice. But this language here in red at the bottom of this page and the next page, that's information about a notice to the employees. Could you please verify that that in fact is correct? Because that's what I understood, that's why I put it in there.
I don't understand that.
In other words, this last line in red here, and then I guess what's on the reverse side of it, which is the front and which is the back. Hold on a second. I'm sorry. It's this last line in red.
It says,
and
be aware of.
Right, and then continued at the top. This is the second page.
I don't
So
know how to answer your question. You can do it if you want, you don't have to if you don't want.
I guess I'm asking, are there legal liabilities? Are these correct legal liabilities attached to the acceptance of the stipend? This text here.
You can impose them if you want. You are not required to impose them.
Can I?
Okay.
They don't exist from somewhere else. There's no federal law that says this or anything like that.
Okay. I was under the impression that if you accepted the money, this came along with it. That you had to follow the board policies.
Only if the Board of Education wants to impose that.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Mr. Frederickson?
Just a question for Mr. Bolton. I know you know more about the law than myself, but with those comments on there, with the way those are written, if there's a search of the phone and there's some sort of damages incurred by the employee, I think if I understand it right, that they would have the opportunity to come back on the district, right? I mean, we're perceived as a government agency, is that correct?
Or your government agency.
Right, so I did look up, did a little research on it. You gotta be careful when you're a private agency versus a government agency in terms of what kind of searches you can do. Is that correct?
If an employee consents to a search in return for getting a $50 a month stipend,
No, I understand that, but
or
what's-
in return for anything else, consent, you can always
So what's a
search
reason?
with consent.
So what's a reasonable request? Where's that in? By the way, I don't get a stipend on the cell phone, so I'm not, this has nothing to do with
Well, if
me.
it passes, you could opt in, I guess. But,
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
yeah. If this is the policy that's passed, an employee can either subject themselves to this and get the stipend, or not subject themselves to this and not get the stipend.
Subject themselves to it.
Well, you can opt in or opt out,
Right.
right? So if you opt in,
You have to
your
abide by
$50 a
this.
month comes with your waiver of whatever other rights, with your notice that you're going to be subject to these conditions, if that's what the board chooses to do. But if you opt out, well, then there would have to be some other probable cause for a search to be made.
What do you mean opt out? Right, so
They decide-
Well, I mean, opt out, but
You mean if you don't take-
employee may opt out.
well, employee doesn't have to take it. I mean, it's not a condition of employment, you have to take it.
Right, that's what I mean by opt out. Opt
Yeah,
out
I
is
didn't
right
even
in here.
mean, yeah, I didn't even mean the opt-out. I guess what my point was. So you don't have to, I guess what you're saying is then it goes to whatever your normal rights are, right? So you're giving up your rights if you agree to that, correct?
If this policy is what the Board of Education adopts,
Yeah.
and if an employee chooses to get the reimbursement,
Sure.
it comes subject to your agreement of these conditions,
All right.
or the employee's agreement to these conditions.
Dr. Brown has arrived at 5:40.
Oh,
Um,
thank you.
yeah,
I
so-
have kind of a practical question, Mr. Bolton. If somebody doesn't opt in, so they say no thank you to the stipend, and no thank you to a district phone, and you need to reach them after hours, how would you do that? And you and I have been involved in a number of after-hour issues this year.
Yeah, certain people you may want to require them to carry a district phone, and you provide the district phone. Other people, you may say, well, you have to provide us a home phone number, and then if you're not at home, you have to provide us with other numbers, or you have the duty every third weekend, or, you know, whatever.
So, in your opinion then, from the district's perspective, the best policy then would be to require certain people to have a district-provided phone?
That is certainly one method that is often utilized. And then if it's district equipment, the district has the right to fully examine it.
Correct.
The district will get the bill and pay the bill and have access to all of that information just in the normal course. And
Okay.
as I say, if it's district equipment, you always have the right to get it and examine it and see what it's been used for and
Thank you.
so on. And the same thing would apply to tablets and laptops and anything else. If the district is providing it, it's district property. And you probably ought to write that down and make it clear, but I think even without it being written down, that would be the accepted interpretation.
Thank you.
Yes, Ms. O'Hensy, you had your hand up.
I have a question. What, in terms of, say, a right-to-know request, would an employee of the district be required to present from their phone? Because they've got emails, they've got phones.
Having just looked at this,
Yes.
if you've got a district employee in charge of a certain matter, and they retain a record of communications relative to that matter, that's a public document. Being that it's a public document, unless another exception authorizes its being withheld, it is subject to being made public. Now, there are a lot of other exceptions, and personnel issues are one of them, and student identifying information is another one, which takes in a lot of what you do around here. Then there are certain things about, terrorist contingency plans and other things of that nature. So if those apply, then it does not have to be made public. And if someone is just talking about schools in general or the school system in general, but it is not directly related to what is in their authority, then that is not a public document. That's just general conversation, private conversation. But if it's directed to someone in their capacity as the principal of a school, it's about their school, something within the principal's authority to act, or even in their authority to refer up the chain of command, then that's probably a public document.
So getting back to this section here, they waive their right to privacy. We can actually enforce them to do that? If we pay them a stipend? So we can.
You could make it a condition of getting the
Yeah,
stipend.
okay. I would not want to have that in there, to be honest with you. I don't think anybody would accept a phone if they had to give up their right to privacy, or a stipend for using their own phone. I think that shall comply with any reasonable request for billing records and usage information is probably okay. And cannot use the phone for any illegal purpose, well, I think that would come under ethics. I don't think we need to have that in there either. And I guess, can we enforce the fact that they can't use the phone for illegal purposes? I don't think we could do that, could we?
Well, I think you could.
I mean, I would hope they
I think you could
wouldn't.
say that about any district property can't be used, or you
Yeah.
might want to say they can't do anything illegal at any time.
Yes.
But
So, may I ask
it's
a follow-up?
redundant to that extent.
Yeah. And our subject to all board policies, I think, is okay. So the two that I think that we should keep are the second one and the fourth one. Dr.
I would
Brown.
ask why the district would have reasonable requests for billing records unless those records were redacted suitably if asked, that only business calls were on there.
Well, this is their personal phone, right? So they're going to have private, personal conversations or contacts, and they're going to have school contacts. So I don't know. I have to ask Mr. Coffin why he said that, but why would the school department ask to see the billing records? Yes.
I can envision that there may be an occasion when the billing record would document the time that a call was made, which may be pertinent to some
Incident?
incident at school. It would mean that he was either notified at that time or that he made the call at that time, and that would be important to some legal aspect.
Okay. I could go along with that. I can understand that, but the usage records, usage information, how much they use their phone? I don't see.
Well, that would be the same thing. There's a complete record of when the calls were made and received using the cell phones. And that would come under that heading of, when a call was made or not made, that would indicate some incident,
Or how long they spoke for, maybe?
could be.
Mr. Kaufman?
To Mr. Mosier's point, I think in the event of an emergency, which is really the intended use of this, they may very well need to know when was a hospital call, when was the call placed. You know, if they stay on the phone with someone, they're gonna maybe walk them through some first aid. I mean, I could see in the event of a more tragic emergency where life and death might be in fact involved, that there may be some, probably, no offense, Mr. Bolton, an attorney somewhere who, or the city, who may want to know that information, so.
But the phones are also used for just daily communications, are they not? To get in touch with somebody, Dr. Brown? How?
Well, I primarily use them for after hours, when I
After
need
hours?
to reach someone at night or on a weekend.
So they're more of an emergency situation than just regular checking up on a point that you needed to get clarified or
Right, I would typically call somebody at their school if I needed to speak with them
during the day.
during the day.
See, I understand that when the uses records like that, it does not include a conversation that took place, but just the time that the call was made and for what duration, which would be important in satisfying any other aspect. So I think that that is something that would probably be rarely used unless there was some personnel matter or some other legal thing or some accident that took place and calls were placed either to an emergency service or to the attorney. Then that would show on the list when the call was made and to who. And no conversation would be involved. But they don't record that unless it's the NSA.
Got it.
Who can't seem to get those nagging telephone calls with dead silence that come, they can't get rid of that. Ms. Hohensie?
Thank you. I was wondering, instead of like they waive their right to privacy, something sort of they may be required to waive the right to privacy in certain cases, just as a disclosure in case of the right to know things. I'm wondering if that would be appropriate, because I don't want in all cases, like this is a now public phone, but in terms of giving them notification that that may be the case. I mean, would something like that be appropriate? I don't know. Because there are certain cases, but that would happen on a home phone, whether they got the money or not, if it's under the right to know. Near their home communication devices and stuff like that.
I know if I had this, and you asked to see my billing records, I'd be blacking out every personal phone call I had. So, I just don't think that anybody's going to accept this if you have waive the right to privacy. I
No,
just don't think
that's absolute. I'm thinking it's a conditional. You may be required in certain circumstances to waive, because you're going to be giving up emails or phone calls in, say, a right to know case
Yeah.
or litigation. So I'm just saying, is that something that we might want to put there instead of, like in all cases, you waive your right to privacy? That's kind of overwhelming, but sort of notification that in certain instances, and I don't know how to phrase it because I'm,
You may, in certain instances,
Be required
May-
to divulge.
required, may, waive,
may be required.
may be required to reveal,
No, you could ask the attorney.
Divulge.
divulge,
Mhm.
divulge what? Their,
Certain aspects.
The
of
next
your
sentence,
telephone
I think you
business.
can include what you started with, excuse me, with the content of the next sentence. I think what you just said is sort of like the beginning phrase or whatever of what would be now part of the next in other words, merge those two sentences with your early phrases that you had. I think you could tie them together.
recipients of the allowance shall understand that you may
be required
be
or maybe
required.
asked to provide or respond to any reasonable requests
Respond to a reasonable request for billing. Right?
Well, not just billing, but we're saying,
or
Telephone use.
access to their phone, right? That's part of it, Mr.
Request
Bolton?
for access to your phone?
not access, but I mean, like in a right to know, you're required to provide certain emails, provide data that's on your phone, so I
Well,
don't.
if we're talking about something that is part of their governmental duties,
Right.
that's not private. So you don't have to waive your right to privacy in order to comply with a public records request. It's either private or it's not. It's either a public record or it's not. If it's a public record, it's not private. So I don't think you have to worry about that part of it. I think mentioning reasonable requests for billing records and usage information is probably a good thing, because I think reasonably, there may be things to be resolved that could require that information. I think probably the waiving the right to privacy just generally is overbroad. I don't think you need the stuff about illegal purpose. I mean, they can't do anything illegal anyway. If it's illegal, it's illegal. This doesn't add
They
an
can,
awful
but we
lot.
have to catch them at it.
And, well, yeah, but the same would always be true.
Yeah.
And it's really the same thing with subject to all board policies. Presumably, employees are subject to board policies, so
So that's
just saying it
redundant?
again doesn't really add much.
I agree with that too.
So there's just
So
one bullet there?
one bullet that says,
May be
recipients of the
required.
allowance shall understand that they shall comply with any reasonable request for billing records and usage information.
Good.
Is that good?
Yeah.
All right. Now, the second option, district-provided device policy, I think we need to say something here about what that means. That the school department will provide a, yeah, go ahead.
That was information that was to be forthcoming from the administration, from
Okay,
Mr. Donovan.
So we
Do you
need-
have anything from him? that-
I do, but what I would do is I put in I mean, he's looking at, I think that's probably something you'd want to talk about in your finance and ops, when you determine what the price is, but you're looking at a typical phone that'll run you around $50+ a month in terms of usage and what have you, if you're talking about the ability to get email and stuff like that. That's why I said, what you may want to do is you may want to put in there under option 2, district will provide a cell phone or a mobile device, and to be determined by the chief operating officer or the superintendent of schools as to what's needed, so.
Well, I can, if I may, Mr. Antoine?
Yep.
I can tell you right now, $35 a month at Verizon on a prepaid plan gets you 2 gig of data, which is email, which is internet, which is phone. So the $50 is actually a high number.
Well, that's why I said just leave it open. You can determine that in your finance.
Yeah, so we need to craft a sentence for that, option 2.
So Mr. Frederick said it had some text to use, so can you please say that again? I think we're almost there.
Okay, you can ask me. The option 2 would be the district will provide a mobile device.
To eligible,
employees
yeah, and that.
as determined by the superintendent of schools.
What was it? Eligible.
I mean, what you choose as a device, I'm sure the superintendent can make that determination, so.
The district will provide a mobile device to eligible employees by what? By
As
the-
determined by the superintendent of schools.
As
Or their designee.
determined
Yeah, that's
by the super of schools, and what was the?
Or their designee.
Or designee.
Because I think right now it's in Mr. Donovan's hands, so we don't have a
Okay.
problem with that.
A paid. How about the district will provide a paid?
And if they provide a phone,
mobile device to eligible employees.
They would provide the device, presumably it works and it operates the, I think we're,
Well, I'm surprised that, okay. All right, so in option 3, employee opt-out policy.
Isn't there something on the form on the next page?
Yep, we'll get
Which
to
allow,
that.
okay.
Yeah. Employees may choose to opt out of the use of a mobile device by completing the Form DKD-R and selecting option 3, opt-out option. Is that okay with everybody? Yep.
I'm not, I don't care if it's in there, I just was gonna say that might be a little bit redundant, because we have to, you know, if an employee just chooses not to take the phone, I mean, there's nothing written into job descriptions, but they still have to provide emergency phone numbers anyway. I mean, you can leave it in there, it's just, you know what I'm saying, if you didn't have that in there, you still have to provide the district with emergency phone number.
Right, but they need to know that there are 3 different options for the
That's fine.
phone, for getting a phone.
Yep, that's fine,
Okay.
I wasn't making I just was saying it might be a little redundant, that's all.
Okay. So, yes.
Where did on the DKD-R, where did the amounts come from, the 17 and the 25?
I don't know, but we'll get to that as soon as we
Okay.
finish with this one.
All right.
So now we're on to page 3 of DKD.
Is there anything else on that page?
It all was,
Accountability, do you want to continue?
it's been crossed out, and then we've made 2 references here. EHAAA and EGA-R. Okay. Any other thing regarding this policy? Then we'll go on to the procedure part of it. And the only things that I had here were the change to the title of option 1, which is the employee provided device policy, and option 3, employee opt-out policy. So, Dr. Brown, what is it that, you have a
Under
question?
option 1, I'm curious where the figures came from.
I can speak to that.
Yep.
I made them up. What I did was, since they're emergency use phones and we're not providing it to conduct daily business, I just took, you know, if a phone line is $35 now, that's the cost of acquisition of a phone line. So the first option is just about half of that, which I think is quite generous. And the second one, if I recall correctly, Mr. Donovan had 2, I don't know how to say this, 2 levels of stipend. There was one for $20 and there was one for $40. And considering there is no policy and there is no procedure, years ago in ancient history when cell phones were very expensive, I mean, we're dealing with a different availability and market now. So I came up with, like I said, if you can get one now at $35, you can make it both for $20 a month. I think, again, that's if we're reimbursing an employee for using their own phone with the intent that it's an emergency. In the event we're providing them the phone, then that's all on the district. And we can deal with that at finance in terms of what constitutes an appropriate phone plan. So
Nice.
that's how those evolved.
Okay, so there is a difference in the cost between a cell phone and a smartphone. We know that. Yep,
Right now,
smartphone.
they treat them the same. Everything is considered a smartphone. Even
But
my
if I went
dumb
out-
new phone has email on it,
Yeah.
so.
Elizabeth Van Twyver doesn't own one of these things. So if I went out and was researching, a cell phone would probably cost me less money than a smartphone?
Absolutely.
Okay, so I object to having the value in there, the actual dollar amount.
Okay.
Would it be better to say that they will be reimbursed at half the monthly allowance? Is that what you want, what you were recommending, or half the monthly market value of these 2?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would say no to that. I mean, I just I have a plan that's, you know, at the low end, $35, $40 a month.
Mm-hmm.
It's very, and that's a certain capability. It's all about bandwidth now. They don't charge you for messages, they don't charge you for phone calls. They just charge you for how much data you're moving around. So for the district's needs, $35 or $20 a month, I believe is an adequate reimbursement. People out there using their own phone, they could spend $89 a month on a high data plan, which certainly is their prerogative, but I don't think the district should pay for half of that, because we would never, ever touch 4 gigabytes a month unless they were at their desk all day watching movies or something, which then would be another problem.
Yeah.
We would never come close to the data that we're paying for. So I think, to your half comment, I would say no. I think
Well, I'm only trying not to have to update this every year, because the expense has gone up and people don't feel that they're getting reimbursed
well,
enough
actually,
for-
the expenses are going down. It's the opposite in the cell phones.
Well,
The price is coming down.
Even that case
It's
for
not-
us, you know, that if the price is going down, then we would have to come in and modify this. So I'm not objecting to having something in there. I'm just saying that I don't think you ought to put the actual value in there. Mr. Frederickson and then Mr. Mosher.
I was just gonna give a suggestion. Why don't you put a similar statement in there for that you had for the early one, as determined by the chief financial officer. Reimbursement would be per the, and then that can be determined every year in your finance, if you wanna do that, so.
I think that would
Or
work.
by the superintendent. You can put it by the superintendent or designee, so.
Well, clearly,
So
with the
monthly
approval, with the approval of the Finance and Operations Committee.
Reimbursement,
Will be reimbursement made at a rate as
Made.
determined by,
at the rate
Oh, just,
determined by the SCOOP,
superintendent or their designee.
superintendent or designee. Okay. Is that for both of them?
I think it's just one statement
Okay.
that would, and if there are multiple options, that would be determined and documented on the administrative side. One of the purposes of having a policy is to, so especially when you're opting in or opting out, it would be very clear if you knew what the rate was. And that's the advantage. And I do believe, and I don't have the city policy in front of me, I believe they have the amount included on their form, if I'm not mistaken.
50 and 17.
Right. So thanks. So to the city's documentation, they include that. Here, they have $50 a month for a mobile device and $17 per month for a cell phone. So I guess that's where I got the $17 from. I forgot that it came from here. So I think, actually, I kind of like what Mr. Frederickson suggested, but at the same time, if someone's completing an application for reimbursement or applying for it, I think it's upfront, very clear what the rate would be. So I would maybe change my mind. You know, you can say that the rate is determined, the rate of reimbursement is determined by the superintendent, and it's currently whatever it is. We decide what that number is. So it's $17 actually came out of the existing city policy at $17 a month, which is on page 2 under 3.0. Thanks for having us, Mr. Ferguson.
Thank you.
Oh, thanks.
Mr. Mosher.
Yeah, you know, listen, Mike practically took the words out of my mouth. I think that the whole question of the rate and so forth, because it is, you know, a volatile thing, should be determined by the Mr. Donovan, because as the rate fluctuates, he can indicate on the application that the current rate is such and such, and may vary according to the carrier. So I think that it'd be the best way to do it is to, you know, because he's going to discuss it with the superintendent and say, listen, we got a good deal on this from so-and-so carrier, and we can get the, all of the mobile devices covered by X amount of dollars. And if it changes, then he can change it, just like he changes the other things on the other rates that we apply.
But Mr. Kaufman, you're not objecting to reimbursing at the current rate that is, it's
yeah.
not like you don't want to have to pay half of it.
Oh, my concern is that for emergency use, we acknowledge they may use their phone in a month, and for having that on-demand, on call, we are paying them some amount of money for that privilege, is essentially what it is. And I think we define what that amount is. To Mr. Mosier's point, I think the thing that we're talking about here, Mr. Mosier, is reimbursing someone for their own personal cell phone. To your point,
My phone cost me $15 a month.
okay, so let's go with Mr. Mosier's carrier, and I'll be very happy. No, I'm seriously.
I know.
You know, there's $35,000 in the budget for cell phone. If we can get the coverage we need to the employees for that kind of money, then even better. But what I would like to say to Mr. Mosier, to Mr. Mosier's comment, when the district provides the device, which is the next option, that's where Mr. Donovan kicks in and is working a deal with different carriers and gets the best price and all that stuff. This first one that we're still discussing.
That's right, that the employee is negotiating that rate, right? And the first choice?
The employee has purchased a plan, and we're saying, thank you, we're gonna give you X dollars because you're kind of on call to us, usually after hours, as Dr. Brown commented. The second option, to
Is-
Mr. Mosier's point, is where Mr. Donovan would go out and buy 30 phones, and, you know, he's gonna work a deal with Verizon or whatever carrier, or whoever Mr. Mosier uses at $15 a month. I'm liking that even better.
Yeah.
No, I need to know for myself who that is, but, so, they're two distinct things,
Okay,
so,
so both of these I think need to be re-wordsmithed,
yes,
so we'll work on those two.
okay. But, to your specific question, to your specific question, Ms. Francois, I would not be in favor of reimbursing someone for half their cost of their phone. If they have a $90 a month plan, I don't want to pay $45
So
a
that's
month
why
for
I think-
occasional use.
Yeah, that's why I think something needs to be said more definitive in that section.
Okay.
Because you're right, you're not gonna, if they only use that part-time, you shouldn't have to pay the full rate on it.
Exactly.
I agree with that. Yes, Ms. O'Hensy.
Thank you. I would tend to think that the initial, way we had it written, to set some rates and then just put an asterisk at the bottom, rate to be reviewed annually by the superintendent or designee, would be a little bit clearer, because then they would know up front what the current rate is. It wouldn't be a big deal to just modify it, but I don't think they're going to change that much. And if anything, they've been going down. So, to me, I think it's clearer to leave them in and then just say that the rate may be adjusted annually, because we look at our
Reviewed
bu-
and adjusted annually.
Yeah, reviewed because that's what we do with our budget. I don't think we're gonna expect Mr. Donovan to do it more frequently than every year.
Right.
I think with the state of the budget, that he probably would check every 3 months to see if there's a change.
Oh, good, good.
Right.
We might have to.
Out of 150 million, yep. Every 3 months. Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Francois. So to that extent, if we were to include a recommended monthly reimbursement amount, I would go with the $17 because it's part-time, occasional, on-demand, emergency use, and it actually is consistent with what the source document was, which was the city, their current policy
Yeah,
that's in
but
place.
once again, I'm
And
opposed to
that was-
putting in a definite, an exact amount, because then we have to come back and
Okay.
review it.
So, but the point I want to make
I'd
here
rather
is,
have the finance and ops do it.
Well,
the point I want to make here is that the policy from the city for the $17 was passed in January of 2014. Okay, so if anything, that's what they felt it was worth for a cell phone back then. So for us to maintain that level of reimbursement is consistent, is generous in that the value, or the cost to provide those phones has come down. So I think we can get, I understand your reluctance to put an actual number in, but at the same time, I think if you put a number in there, it's clear to the employee what's going on, and to Ms. Hohensy's point, by asterisking, if that's a word, putting put an item there with an asterisk, saying that it's reviewed, subject to review by the chief operating officer or superintendent and their designee, I think gives us the flexibility to make this a little more dynamic if necessary. But I think documenting to the employee the clarification, just like the city does, I think that's a good idea.
Okay. Do you have anything else, Mr. Frederickson?
No, I'm not 100% sure. The only thing is, I don't know where we ended up under option one. So
Option
you
one?
have to tell me. Are we leaving it as is? We put an asterisk? Are we changing it to the wording? What are we doing?
Well, I think we can talk about that, see that we can meet both things when we wordsmith this.
Okay.
All right, this is gonna have to come back again, and if there are no other changes, I'm going to suggest that this be worked on again and brought back, and I think for approval, I think we need to have Dr. Mosley's opinion on this, because it's his people that he has to get in touch with, and I don't feel that we ought to hinder his ability to handle emergency situations and others, so, Mr. Kaufman.
Thank you. I just wanted to point out that we may want to adjust the title of the form to be consistent with the title in the policy.
So what's the new title?
So,
Cell
cell
phone.
phone device
cell-
policy.
Request.
So we would take out the word "and mobile." Cell
Yes.
phone device policy request form,
Yep,
just for consistency. I know you like consistency amongst our things.
yes.
And the only other question I would ask is,
I do have one more question, and I guess I thought I explained it myself, and then equipment to be used, cell phone, smartphone, email, and web capable. Why do we need that? Why do you need to know whether it's a cell phone or a smartphone?
well, are you directing that
Yep.
to me? Okay. So I think now the phones that, even the low-end phones,
Yep.
have obviously telephone capability, text, email, and internet.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, we could massage these words as the reasons.
Just
We could
because-
have equipment to be used as really a cell phone, because cell phones, like I just said, are internet enabled, as well as email, as well as text, as well as phone. That's included. So we might be able to just say equipment to be used as a cell phone. You could have an other there, I don't know what it might be at this time, but you could leave it there. Things are gonna evolve, right? So I think a cell phone is more than adequate for the purposes of reaching people in an emergency. And a cell phone, meaning there's email with it, there's text with it, and maybe they have to go out on the internet on something, I don't know. I don't know about that, but. So can we just go with equipment to be used being a cell phone? If you want to have a second box, we could put other and allow for it.
Why don't you just call it a mobile device?
Well, I guess the thing I'm struggling with there would be iPads and
Tablets.
laptops and.
They're all mobile devices.
Well, not really.
But if we want to reach
Not
someone
if
in an emergency, I think we want a device that actually someone could talk on.
Well, you could do Skype on an iPad, but, you're not gonna do that.
How about 2 cans with a string in between?
That may work someday when we need it.
But the radius of how you could reach people would be very short, mister.
I wonder if you could
Look, that was
use
straight on.
Ethernet cable.
Well, I just
Why
didn't
not?
know, I thought maybe there was something I missed about why we needed that in there, so.
Well, right now, I think what we're doing, we're belaboring the point on a lot of this stuff, and it is my thought that we haven't gone as far as I think we can go on this tonight. We should refer this to Finance and Ops and let them fine tune it.
Yeah.
Let them put the numbers in.
Because then they can, put yeah, exactly. Then we can put the
We're not
numbers.
gonna put numbers in the policy, I'm trying to tell you, we're not gonna
Then
do that.
we will have the input from Donovan as to what the current costs are.
All right, we will work on this and bring a revised back to the June meeting. All right?
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Bolton.
Thank you, Attorney Bennett. Excuse me, Bolton.
Bolton?
If I may be excused.
You may be excused, sir.
Right.
Thank you for coming
you.
and spending time with us.
You don't want to stay?
My wife's
His
waiting.
wife is out.
He has a real excuse to leave. Good night. Thank you again.
I'll see you Thursday.
All right.
Okay.
I have a question,
Uh-huh.
and I understand this is coming back, but if it's coming back and we're waiting for Dr. Mosley to review it, he won't be here in June, are we canceling our June meeting? I mean, what is the criteria by which we hold
Well, we won't
things?
cancel the June meeting. We'll just hold it off, if you like, to July then.
I'm not asking you to hold it at all. I'm just saying when we start doing this, we're just piling things up. At what point, I mean, what is the criteria? Why should we pass any policies unless he looks them over? I'm just trying to understand the mindset.
Well, some of the policy changes are required by state law, and those have to go whether he likes it or not, so we're gonna take those up in June,
Okay.
okay? Now, this has direct thing on how he operates his business. So I think that he should be able to chime in on whether this policy flies or not.
Okay, could we have a backlog list for the next meeting?
I'll tell you, it's the same list that you had when you were chair. You can cross off maybe one or two of the things, and everything is up for grabs every month. We never know what's gonna pop up, and I think maybe that June might be kind of an interesting month as far as policy is concerned, so I don't wanna commit to,
But there were a few things that were added since the last time. I mean, there was a recess policy, there's a few other things that were
we're gonna
added.
have a recess policy.
We were gonna discuss in policy withholding recess. We
We'll
decided to
work-
refer that to committee.
Yep.
So it should be on
As
the
soon as
backlog
Mr.
list.
Frederickson and I can meet and decide when we'll be able to do that.
I'm not saying when, I'm just a list, like you have one in curriculum, so we know if it's growing and what it looks like. Because otherwise I gotta dig back and find the old one. I just thought you kept a current list. And if so,
No, I
I'd like
don't.
to share it.
I
with
don't
the
have,
committee.
if I was gonna look, I'd go look on the website to find that list. But like I say, things come up and we have to deal with them if it's important enough, so. As far as your policy on psychologists is concerned, is that the one that you're interested in?
I'm not saying when, I just wanna see the list. I figure you're adding these things each time they get recommended or referred to policy, that you would have a list,
Well-
a cumulative list.
Mhm.
That's all I wanna see is if we could have a
Sure.
cumulative list for the
Mhm.
next time.
I'd be
That's
glad to
not
do
too
that
difficult.
for you next
I
time.
appreciate it, because
Yes.
then we know, as a committee, what we've got as a backlog.
Fine.
Thank you.
Shall we move on?
Yeah, we're moving on. The next one is JLDBA. This is a brand new one too, correct?
It's one of the ones that was on the list,
Yeah,
on the
and
backlog list.
I had no problems with this one, except for the fact that in paragraph 4 to insert the reference to the Individuals with Disabilities Act, IDEA in parentheses.
Yep, so, state laws, ID, yep, gotcha.
And remove paragraph 8. The policy will be reviewed on an ongoing basis in accordance with the board's policy review process.
Okay.
You can remove that, that's standard operating procedure. And we're supposed to do them every 4 years, but we've never gotten around to it because we can't get the others done that need to be done, so
Okay.
you can strike that.
Good.
You have any comments about this one? Anybody? You willing to accept it as proposed?
Move to accept it as amended.
Is there a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those say no. Opposed, say no. Passes, and we'll bring that forward to the full board. Okay, then the next one is JKAA, Child Restraint and Seclusion, which is reference only, and the real changes are in the procedure, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So,
I seem to remember that this had come up some time ago. I look at the references.
well, Ms. Breen was here, I think, the last time.
I thought
Let's
we
see, when
had
was
done
this?
this when
Law change.
Tom Vaughan was,
Yes, and we did some updates, I think, when I was chair before with Mrs. Breen in 11/30/15. JKA-R replaces Bob's JKA-R. Oh, I see. Okay, so the changes are on page 7. A whole new paragraph. Inserting, after paragraph 3, the next paragraph is renumbered to 4, and we have a new paragraph 5. It says, all school employees have a duty to report a violation of the restraint and seclusion law when that person has reason to believe that the action of another constituted a violation of the restraint and seclusion law and constituted misconduct or suspected misconduct pursuing to ED 510. Any suspected violation or misconduct shall be reported to the school administrator. The Nashua School District will review each report and determine whether there was a violation of the restraint and seclusion law. In situations where there is documentation that no violation occurred, the school district must document this decision, including the evidence. Okay, thank you. Evidence that was relied on, and must maintain the documentation and provide it to the New Hampshire Department of Education during its review of records. So the word evidence should be changed to evidence. And pursuant to ED 510, I think should be ED 510.01, duty to report. Just a small, it's a little more
Say
definitive.
that again, ED 510 what?
510.01, duty to report. And then, on the next page, paragraph 1, this can be replaced too. Let me see, new paragraph 7 of ed. Okay, so are there any questions on that paragraph? This is all required by ED Department of Education.
this is a horrible, horrible policy.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. Why do you say
Because
so?
when it first came about from Concord, that there was a lot of discussion about it, and there was general agreement that this policy was not a good policy.
But it's been
Well, the
correct-
law was not a good policy because of the way you
Well, yeah,
restrained,
the law.
right? Because of the restraint?
And as you said, it was amended, so it's really got more latitude, is what you were saying. But, it's just limiting physical contact. And it's difficult to draw the line and set it, so, it's a tough situation.
I was trying to remember which section it was. Authorized in monitoring of extended restraint and length of restraint. Prohibited use of restraint and seclusion. I think that was the section that came up the last time about it.
Yeah,
We
it's
had
just
so
written
much
after.
trouble. Huh?
It's just written right after the law. I mean, the wording, verbiage comes from the law.
You know, just as a, kind of offhand comment, back in the 1940s, there was nothing like this that guided Sister Mary Dorothy in maintaining discipline.
weren't so many attorneys in litigation. That's what we're talking about here.
Well,
Yeah, because if
what,
they-
in this
If
paragraph?
she called up your parents, and your parents would take care of it too.
Right, but this
This
is.
paragraph is saying that everybody has responsibility of reporting at something that they've seen done, right?
Well, what that paragraph is
Suspected-
doing, it's.
Mandatory.
If you if you witness somebody doing an illegal restraint or seclusion, then you're mandated to report it. And
That's right.
That's what.
Okay, any other questions or comments about that paragraph? Then we'll go on to page 8, where the first paragraph has been struck in its entirety and replaced with, in cases involving serious injury or death to a child subject due to restraint or seclusion, the superintendent, the superintendent's designee, the acting superintendent's designee, or school administrator must, in addition to the notification requirements above, verbally notify the Commissioner of the New Hampshire Department of Education, the Attorney General, and the New Hampshire Disability Rights Center as soon as possible. A written report must be provided to the above entities within 5 business days and must include the information contained within the incident report that is required to be filled out after each incident of restraint and seclusion. That's a mouth word, a lot of mouth word. And a lot of people you have to notify. Anybody have any problem with that? Nope, me neither. So, with the 2 changes that we made,
I move to adopt them as amended, with
okay,
that one change for spelling, I think.
evident, and then changing the reference to ED 510
Right.
to be fully spelled out. Is there a motion?
I made the motion to take
Is there a
as
second?
amended.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion carries, and this will be forwarded to the full board for adoption. At the next meeting. Okay. That concludes the business for the oh, no, it doesn't. There's one more. ECA-R. This was left over from the last board policy meeting because Mr. Kaufman wanted to make sure that we didn't have conflicting information between ECA-R and ECA-F, which is the use of cameras on school buses. And there is one point, and I think it's going to require going back to the safety director, because Mr. Donovan suggested that on school buses, the tapes are looped and they are not stored anywhere, so.
That's right.
Uh-huh. So media will become the property of the school district and will be stored at the office of the superintendent of schools. All media will be destroyed at the conclusion of the school year unless it must be retained due to a pending appeals or litigation. So that has to be fixed. That has to be a policy change on what you do with those tapes if you have an incident on the bus, like we did have an incident on the bus. So, I mean, if you've only got 7 days to retrieve that videotape of when the incident happened,
So you're saying on the bus policy, yes, it should be.
yeah, ECAF has to change.
Okay, so we'll take a look at that.
Yeah.
Is ECAR okay?
As far as I could see it was, I didn't see any other problem. You have a problem?
You have a numbering.
Yeah.
You have 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, so you just have to renumber them all.
Where is that?
The first page, you have 2 paragraph 1s.
On the first page of which one?
On
EC?
page 5 of the red part, the first page of the corrections. Page 5, it says video
Oh.
surveillance, 1, 1. So,
That's an editorial change, that's not a big
correct,
deal.
it's a minor thing. So I will move to, are you gonna take this as is and worry about the other one later? Or are you gonna wait to double them up?
There's no necessary action to be taken on a, oh, we haven't, that's right, we haven't approved this, have we?
No, so I move
Okay,
to
so-
adopt it as amended.
Okay, so we're going to modify, is there a second, Bill?
Yeah, I'll second.
Thank you. All right, you do it. So we're going to modify the numbering on the red section and then move it forward for approval by the full board. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries and it's passed. So that'll go forward. So, but then we do need to look at ECIF, and I would like to refer that back to administration for
Sure.
a solution to that problem,
No problem.
okay?
Move to adjourn?
Yeah, second. All those in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Thanks,
We're
Mike.
adjourned at what time?
Record. 6:40.
6:40. Okay, thank you.
It's amazing.